Love for all, hatred for none.
If I can just date and get married, why would I want an arranged marriage? It's more of a common question. I do have my opinion, but what about this one? What do you think?
Yeah, I think this question really hits at that point of outdated because we have to ask ourselves, why wasn't anybody asking this, let's say 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago? Did we just have a crazy epiphany where we realize that we
Hmm.
don't even need to get married? We can just do dating and everything is fine. So I think that's the first and important question that anybody who has this question has to explore, that we're not reinventing the wheel. We're doing the same humans, the same civilization, the same societies the whole time. But there's a reason why throughout most of human history, people didn't do dating. They reserved that kind of activity, especially sexual activity, for after marriage. So the reason why humans have been doing it all along, the same reason why this is a common sense question that anybody, like 100, 1,000 years ago could have given you an answer to, that's what the
Right.
answer is. We in the modern world, we just kind of gotten disconnected from our roots, and we don't understand the value of marriage anymore. So I think it's
Yeah,
just
this
that's
is
an interesting question of how, like, we're just
yeah,
so
it's
disconnected from that.
it's a big debate, and it's actually very interesting as well because as I was looking, Mahmoud Kossar Saab, I'm gonna let you come in here too, but I saw some stats which talked about how many divorces have happened just recently. It's much less than what used to happen a long time ago. But when you just said that marriage used to be the thing, dating was not much of a thing, so the numbers look a bit skewed when I just saw that there's less divorces now compared to before. But we can go more into the details. But yeah, cause us up.
No, so I think, yeah, and I think it's important that we take on a different angle, though.
Hmm.
Dating, for example, who does it benefit the most? Does it benefit women and children, or does it benefit men, especially younger men? A lot of people will report, even online, that, if you're above 40 or even above 35, dating is a very difficult challenge, something you don't even want to dab into. And if you're
Yeah.
forced because you can't find a mate, then usually they're not looking for a mate that's for the purposes of dating so they can move on from one person to another. But more
Right.
importantly, they're looking for a life partner. And that's literally what you
Right.
would define as marriage. What is the real purpose
Mm.
of, marriage? Is to find that universal partner that you can live your life with.
Right.
So,
Right. It's more like a trial and error kind of thing. That's what
yeah,
you would call
exactly.
dating.
I mean, in
Yeah,
that
that's
point, do you mean that, like, does dating benefit men or women more, or do you talking about like older and younger people? Who does it benefit more?
I think in general, so it benefits definitely younger people, but even among younger
Mhm.
people, it benefits men more in the sense that
Okay.
they can move on from one partner to another with no regard for the outcome of it.
Yeah,
What do they
but
leave
that,
yeah,
that
behind?
that
may be.
point.
Yeah, go ahead,
I mean, that point
Rizwan.
on how our priorities change as we get older, we want more of a commitment. We're not into that initial excitement. So dating is more something that's attractive to people who are into that initial excitement, who are into the
Right.
hookups and the one night stands. I mean, obviously, someone who's older is more mature. They're looking for more
Exactly.
of an attachment. And also, I think that kind of gender difference that you mentioned, it actually starts to play out further as you get older, because unfortunately what we see is that whether it's marriage or, like, as women get older, they have a more difficult time finding a husband,
Hmm.
being able to, find a date in the same way that men are able to do as they get older. So I think definitely, like, gender does play a role, and then it becomes more and more kind of acute as we get
Right.
older, where it becomes more of a struggle and more of an advantage for men.
But there are those who also argue, I'll push back a little bit here, that there are those who also argue that if marriage is not the ultimate goal, some people just don't want to settle down, right? They just want to enjoy life. Whoever comes, let them come. I go out, I go clubbing, I just enjoy myself. If that means I go with the opposite sex partner, so be it. And then it's like, I don't feel anything out of it. I'm not committed to anything. It may be a little different for those people, though. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's
I
important for
think for
those
people,
people
yeah,
to
go ahead. Mo.
understand. Yeah, no, just for those people to understand that, as you get older, as Rizwan already mentioned, your priorities will start to realign to, what is the purpose.
Mm,
How are you going to go
mm,
around from mate to mate, when you are 45, 50 years old, 60 years old? People do it, but like I said,
mm-hmm.
vast majority of people will say, no, no, I'd rather have a life partner with me. So if that
Right.
And I
priority
think even
changes, what doesn't benefit you when you're old, you know, it's not useful when you're young. It's just a kind of a pastime, and that's why it's
and
more
Right.
even
important for
within
people to
dating,
understand
people,
marriage. Yeah.
people start to gravitate towards that ideal of marriage, anyways. Because like we mentioned before, that, like, you're looking more for a long term partner, you're looking more for emotional attachment, and they're also the system of marriage is something that favors women. So that kind of raises a kind of weird point, which is that were people in the past more aware of the needs of women and the rights of women than we are today? Because today what we live in is a distinctly kind of what we would call a feminist society, where we're looking out for the rights of women and all those things. But then if, dating is actually ultimately in the better interest of men because of, the way in which testosterone and estrogen affect us, the way that men are more inclined towards changing partners, towards physical attraction and physical attachment rather than emotional attachment, then that institution of marriage as it existed in the past was, as I understand it, it was always there because the family structure was strong, because the father was there to protect his daughter. He said that, no, you cannot sleep with my daughter unless you give assurances of long-term emotional commitment, financial commitment, all of those things.
That's a good argument. But also, we mentioned about those who may not be committed to a long-term relationship, but even those who do want to commit to a long-term relationship, the discussion point here is that, why do I have to go through an arranged marriage if I can date? So dating, then the concern is, the point is that, I want to date. Obviously I will get to know this person more. I'll get to get a feel of it and see how likely is it going to be for me to find out that it's a long-term relationship, more like a trial and error. If it doesn't work, I move away. If it does, I get it, right? So what's so difficult to understand about that? Someone may ask.
No, so regarding that as well, like one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is, even in the question, if I just date and then I get married, the thing is you're looking for two different things. When you're dating, you're looking for a very different characteristic in your partner. Whereas when you're looking for a life partner, for example, just as a simple example, if you wanted to buy your friend or mother, for example, a gift, and you wanted to get her a dependable, strong, reliable gift, but you can't show up at Dollarama or Dollar Tree and expect to get her a gift that has those qualities.
Some people may, right? But yeah, I get your point.
Right, well, that's what I mean, right? And that's what dating is, right? So dating is that quick, dispensable, relationship that you can have quickly, one night stand type of scenario. But a life partner is somebody now you're looking at very different qualities. You have to live with this person now. So are they helpful? Are they kind? Are they loving? Are they devoted? Are they loyal? Are they faithful? These are the things you start looking for. So
but like when you mention life partner, that kind of raises a question in my mind that, in a society, in our society where we have divorce rates at the level that they are, that do we even look at our spouse as a life partner? Because now I see a trend where people are more inclined towards thinking that you're just in love with somebody as long as you're in love with them, and there's nothing wrong with drifting apart and then getting a divorce and then finding somebody else, because divorce has gotten so normalized. With the normalization of divorce, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of marriage, which is meant to be a commitment that you're not supposed to break unless there's something extreme. So, that point about, dating, we're just trying it out and we can leave if it doesn't work out. How is that fundamentally different than what people are doing in marriage right now anyways? That when there's small points of incompatibility, then people end up leaving. They don't care if, it's hugely incompatible for the kids they might have had or anything else. So I think that's something that it's a tough question a lot of people have to ask themselves.
Yeah. So to come back to the conversation, and I'll I do have another point in mind, but we have put together a short video that kind of puts these 2 points together, this arranged marriage and people's notion and what the numbers really are in different countries. So enjoy that short video and we'll come back right here to continue this discussion.
Recently, a woman in India called off an arranged marriage when her new husband wasn't able to answer a simple math question. Most people don't think that you can just call off an arranged marriage or that they still even exist, but arranged marriages are not just some forgotten custom from the past. They still happen every day around the world. Arranged marriages are when a third party, usually a relative or a matchmaker, selects your spouse, but with your permission. This is distinct from forced marriages where there is no consent, as is the case with child brides. Arranged marriages actually used to be the norm in most societies. That's in part due to the belief that a person's parents were better equipped to decide who would be a good match for their children. This made sense at a time when the average age of marriage was much lower and social mobility was otherwise impossible. Another reason for the practice was to make sure your son or daughter married someone of the same faith or race in what's known as an endogamous marriage. They were used to ensure continued bloodlines and wealth consolidation. Today, arranged marriages are much rarer overall, but in some parts of the world are still a regular occurrence. In particular, India has a long tradition of arranged marriage, still widely practiced today. But although many Western countries look down on arranged marriages, some studies have shown that they might not be as bad as they're portrayed. One study pitted American love marriages and Indian arranged marriages to see which led to happier unions. You'd think that two people pushed together by their parents probably wouldn't fall in love at first sight, and you'd be right. But over the long term, researchers found that American couples were more in love at the start of the relationship, while Indian couples surpassed American love as their marriage progressed. And on average, both types were about equally as happy.
This indeed has some very interesting stats, but more than just what the video is mentioning about it's not forced marriage. Arranged marriage does not mean children getting married. From an Islamic perspective, though, why could it? I mean, if that's the case, why could arranged marriage be more of an advantage? Well, let's forget dating or anything like that. Is it recommended?
Yeah, that video had brought up a lot of important points, which are really important to clear up, because that's what comes to people's mind when they think of arranged marriage, which is, like you mentioned, consent is not possible because it's a child marriage, and also it's forced marriage. You don't have a say. Those are things that Islam has very clearly rejected, saying that you have to have consent. You have to be mature enough where you can give informed consent. You have to be physically and intellectually mature. So, that introduction to arranged marriage is really important to then be able to point out that what we're talking about is not a cultural practice. It's a religious teaching which goes against that, that modern concept of dating. So that clarification, I think, is real important.
Before you head back into your busy lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon.
Love for all, hatred for none.